This is Kim Hammer with your devotion taken from the book of Judges chapter 16. Samson had been captured and now he was a prisoner of the Philistines. And on one day when the Philistines had all of their key leaders gathered together, we find that they wanted to bring Samson out to make sport of him and to have him entertain them in whatever fashion form that they thought would be entertainment. And he said to the servant who brought him out into the presence of the Philistines, he said, "Put me between the two pillars that hold up this place." And there were 3,000 people on the upper deck, not to mention everybody else, and they were all leaders of the Philistines. The thing I want you to think about is this, that when it came time for Samson to realize that the end of his life was near, he didn't do anything to try to save it. In fact, if anything, he tried to use what he knew would be the end of his life to glorify the Lord, not necessarily to make an atonement for his mistakes as much as it was that he had learned from his mistakes, and he wanted to go out in a way which would celebrate the Lord and glorify the Lord instead of allowing those Philistines to be glorified by them taking sport in him. In other words, Samson took control of the situation even though he had no control over the situation. And that's an important distinction because a lot of things that happen in life, sometimes because of our own doing, we have no control over the situation. But that doesn't mean that we can't take control of it in order to use it for God's honor and glory. And that's exactly what Samson did. So when he had the servant place him between the two key pillars that were holding up that temple where all the Philistines were gathered, especially all the leaders of the Philistines, he prayed to God and asked God for strength just one more time. And he was going to use that strength one more time in order to glorify the Lord. Of course, we know that he separated the pillars from their foundation, and the building came collapsing down, including him. And he, in fact, cried out and said, "Glory to God as my life is taken," something along that line. He wanted to make sure and I want you to think about this. He wanted to make sure that the last thing all those Philistines heard was God being glorified in his death. He didn't curse the Philistines who had done to him what they did. He didn't really try to extract vengeance upon them. What he did was he took the situation and he used it to honor and glorify God so that the last words those Philistines heard before they went to an eternity in hell is Samson praising God. And he separated those pillars from the foundation and they collapsed. I would say all that to say this. You tell a lot by the way a man lives. You tell more by the way he dies. Samson didn't live a perfect life. He had a lot of flaws. He had a lot of faults. He had a lot of mistakes. But in the end, when it really counted, Samson made his life count in spite of the mistakes that he had made, because he realized you can tell one thing by the way a person lives. You tell a whole lot more about when they die.